Happy Tuesday morning. I'm Ozarks first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, and we had a foggy start to the morning today, and we may see some more fog again going into Wednesday morning as well. But you may be asking yourselves, well, what causes fog? What is it? Why does it happen? And are there more than one type? Well, to answer the question, yes, there is more than one type. Let's take a look. All right, so we got some videos of just fog here. I'm going to go through and give some basic definitions of what we see for fog. Now, it's important to recognize that not all fog is the same. In fact, yes, there are several different types of fog. Now, the two most common types are radiation fog and advection fog. Other types include steam fog, precipitation fog, upslope fog, valley fog. Then you also have freezing fog and even ice fog that can happen too. Now, each fog type requires a different weather setup in order to form. Okay, so let's begin with what exactly is fog? Well, fog is simply a collection of water droplets, right? It's not water vapor, it's water droplets, liquid water. Now, these water droplets form when the water vapor, that's the gas form of water, is condensed. This leaves the water vapor, the water droplets, suspended in the air. Now, the creation of fog is a phase change, right? You're going from the gaseous form of water, which is water vapor, to the liquid form of water, which is the water droplets. The thickness of fog is determined by the amount of water vapor present in the air and the amount of what's called condensation nuclei. Now, condensation nuclei, we're going back to physics class now, these are tiny particles in the air. This could be dust, could be pollen, plenty of that this time of year. Could even be smoke particles or even salt. Condensation nuclei they act like magnets to water vapor, and they allow droplets to cling to them once the water vapor is condensed. So you can have water vapor in the air, but if there's nothing for the water vapor to attach itself to, one of those condensation nuclei, then the water vapor will not condense. It will stay in the gaseous form. It's only once they have the presence of a condensation nuclei, one of those particles, that the water vapor is then allowed to condense into liquid water. Kind of interesting. Okay, so the two most common types of fog are advection fog and radiation fog. We'll touch on these two real quick. Radiation fog is probably the most common type between the two. Basically, the Earth cools itself at night by radiating heat from the daytime. So take away the sun, the Earth begins to cool itself. Heat just leaves the Earth's surface. Now, advection fog is formed by that cooling at the Earth's surface. Now, cooling near the surface causes water vapor in the air to condense into fog. As water vapor condenses into fog, it releases heat back into the surrounding environment. That process is known as latent heat release, and the cooling condensing cycle starts all over again. That's the most common type, right? You cool the air when you go into the overnight. The Earth, meanwhile, is releasing heat, and so the atmosphere is trying to find itself in equilibrium. Cool air holds less water. So you cooling the atmosphere, you force the air to condense, the water vapor in the air to condense into water droplets. Now, the second most common type of fog is advection fog. This is formed when you have air masses moving in, right? So you have a warm front, cold front. Those are different air masses, right? So advection fog is formed when warm, moist air moves over cooler ground. Let's say you have snow on the ground, or you just got out of a cold spell, and now a warm front's coming through the area, right? So you have a temperature difference between the ground temperature and the air temperature. Now, the contact between warm air and cool ground lowers the temperature of the air above the surface, right? The two masses between ground and air are trying to find equilibrium, trying to cool down to match or warm up to match an equal temperature. Okay, now cooler air holds less water vapor. Therefore, the water vapor is condensed and formed into fog during this process. Advection fog can also last for several days if you have that temperature difference from ground to air. And it can form under cloudy skies and even under maybe a strong breeze. You don't get that with radiation fog. Okay, the other types, steam fog, precipitation fog, valley fog, freezing fog, You can find more on that on our website, ozarksfirst.com, in the story down below. Okay, so now you know that there are different fog types. You know a little bit about the fog basics, with the exception being advection fog, which relies heavily more on the ground temperatures. Fog typically dissipates once the sun comes up. That's because then the sun begins to warm the air mass and the atmosphere is changing, right? It's getting warmer, and that sometimes allows the water droplets to evaporate back into the warmer air. Warmer air can hold more water vapor versus cold air. So you warm up the air, well then your water vapor, your water droplets that is, that condensed earlier will now evaporate, phase change from liquid to gas, the other direction, once you warm up the air mass. Drivers, fog can be a challenge sometimes, especially when it's dense. It's obviously best to travel slowly in the fog, and you want to leave early when fog is an issue. You also should have your headlights turned on, but you want to put them on the low setting, because if you have your high beams on, you've probably noticed this if you've ever given it a try. Turn on your high brights thinking, oh, I'll be able to see more. No. Fog, the water droplets of fog, scatters the light and makes visibility even worse when driving with high beams turned on. So it's best to have your low lights turned on, your regular headlights. If you have a lower setting on your headlamps, use those as well. Some cars nowadays have what they call fog lights, specifically used for foggy days. Those are also helpful. All right. So there you go. Now you know all about fog. If you're interested in knowing more, there's a couple links on the web story on ozarksfirst.com. Go check them out. Fog's interesting. We see a lot of fog around here in the Ozarks, especially in the transition seasons, spring and again fall. And then the wintertime, you find some fog as well. Summertime, you can find fog sometimes, but typically your air in the summertime is warmer. You can hold a lot more of that water vapor. I'm Ozarks First Meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Happy Tuesday. Looks like we've got a week ahead of warm and muggy weather. Chance of storms, too, moving in this weekend. So stay tuned for more developments as we go into the weekend and early next week, looking at those storm risks.